This is our VPP video for our Lesson 7 vocabulary words. The first word is cadaverous. Here's the sentence. The cadaverous refugees barely had the strength to feed themselves. You can see here that cadaverous is being used as an adjective. It's telling us something specifically about the noun refugees. If you've heard the term cadaver, then you'll know what this means, hopefully, because cadaverous is the adjective form of it. Clues in the sentence would be that these people are so weak that they cannot feed themselves. A cadaver is a dead body, so they're not dead bodies yet, but they are of or like a corpse. Their skin is probably very pale, gaunt, thin. Synonym would be ghastly, opposite would be robust or healthy. Here's a picture to illustrate cadaverous. We have this older gentleman. His face is very thin. He's very gaunt. He's very pale. Cadaverous. Our next word is penury. Here's our sentence. Going from penury to riches is a classic American success story. So the opposite context clue strategy is used here. Riches is the opposite of penury. So penury means extreme poverty. So it is a noun. A synonym would be destitution. Opposite would be wealth or opulence. Here's a picture to illustrate penury. We've got a person on the streets. They're probably homeless. They're sitting by a trash can. They have a bag beside them, which probably contains their worldly possessions. Obviously not much. A lot of times we'll see people on the street like this. Sometimes when I'm coming to school, there will be somebody at the exit of 385 in Woodruff with a sign asking for money because they are in penury. Most of you would not be in penury, or else you would not be at Southside Christian School. Our next word is flux. His views were so often in flux that many called him a perpetual flip-flopper. Flip-flopper is somebody who goes up and down on their views. They keep changing their mind. Sometimes we see this in the arena of politics, where a politician will say that he or she is for one issue, like for example, maybe for making immigration laws stricter, but then they change their mind and they say, no, we need to let more people in. So their views are changing. Perpetual means constantly. It's always happening. So flux is a noun, and it means a state of continual change or movement, fluctuation, instability. The opposite is stability or solidity. Think of being on a roller coaster. You're going up and down, you're up and down. Here's a picture kind of illustrating that. It's not one smooth, steady line, flat line. It's just going up and down, in flux. Next word is egress. This sounds like a hard word, but it really is something simple. Flying terrified Marnie, so here's the result, cause and effect. She always wore a parachute and knew where the nearest egress was. She wants to be able to get off of the plane quickly, so she's going to make sure she knows where the nearest exit is. So if she's on the plane, she actually pays attention to the stewardess when the stewardess gives directions at the beginning of the flight, telling the passengers where those exits are located. A means of going out, a passage. The opposite would be ingress or an entrance. So in my room, there are 3 egresses. We can egress or exit out into Mr. Woodward's room, or through the middle hallway, or down that ramp, egress. Here's a picture. It might even be Southside Christian. We've got these doors leading out to the outside most likely, or to another hallway. You see the exit sign, although it's blurry, above those doors, marking the egress or route of exit. Our next word is Gothic. We talked about Gothic things when we read and discussed Edgar Allan Poe's The Cask of Amontillado. If you want to experience a creepy mystery, read The Castle of Otranto, the first Gothic novel. So creepy and mystery are words that help us figure out what Gothic is. It's being used as an adjective here. There are actually 2 meanings of Gothic. The first one we haven't discussed this year, but it means having to do with the Middle Ages, a medieval time period, usually used in describing architecture. The second meaning is of or relating to a mysterious, grotesque, and desolate style of fiction. So, of course, again, think of Edgar Allan Poe, think of Stephen King, think of any kind of horror stories or movies. They would be considered gothic. So I've got two pictures for you here. One having to do with the first definition. I've got a picture of probably a church. It looks like a church, and it's was built in the Middle Ages, so it's Gothic architecture. And then the second picture has to do with fiction, in this case, Frankenstein, the original book by Mary Shelley, mysterious, grotesque, desolate fiction. Our next word is gird. He girded himself for the tough exam, so he's doing something, so it's a verb, and the possibility that he might have to explain a poor grade on it to his parents. So this will be coming up for you guys soon. In the next week or so, you'll begin hopefully girding yourself for those exams if you want to do well. If you gird yourself for something, whether it's an exam or some other type of event, you are preparing for it. Athletes gird themselves for competition by all those workouts and practices. Even maybe watching film of opposing teams would be a way to gird yourself. Synonym is brace. Think not braces on your teeth, but brace yourself to face the competition, or brace yourself for the impact of a collision. Here's a picture, and you might think, what in the world does this have to do with gird? Well, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, we've got Luke Skywalker with Yoda, who is girding him to face Darth Vader. He is girding himself in his Jedi skills, preparing to do battle against the dark side. Our next word is despot. Hopefully you've heard this before, and it is pronounced despot, not despot, like it might look like it would be pronounced. Here's a sentence. The oppressed citizens trembled when the tyrannical despot made eye contact with them. So your context clue strategies are, you're going to look at these keywords like citizens who are being oppressed. So oppressed, that adjective helps us figure it out. Tyrannical, that adjective, think of a tyrant, also helps you figure it out. And they're trembling when they see this person. So it's a type of person, so it's a noun. And it is a person who is a dictator with absolute power. The people have no freedom. There are people always, and the despot has people always watching them, and they always have to be on their guard. It's a life of fear. Synonym is tyrant. Here's a picture of the despot that most people think of when they hear this term, Adolf Hitler. Despot over Germany and then parts of Europe, as he desired to take over that whole continent during the 1930s and 1940s. In the news this past weekend, the despot of Cuba, Fidel Castro, just passed away, and so many Cubans were celebrating because this leader was finally dead. Our next word is hovel, not hovel, but hovel. One person's hovel is another person's edifice. So this is opposite context clue strategy. Edifice, as you know, means an elaborate structure. One of our earlier words this year, think of something like the Empire State Building, a castle, a mansion. Zaroff's edifice, his palatial chateau on Shiptrap Island. So hovel is the opposite. So it's a wretched living place, an open shed, a shanty, or a shack. Opposite is palace or mansion. Here's a picture. This is a hovel that you might see, and you might think to yourself, how in the world could somebody live in this place? A hovel, a shack. Our next word is felicity. The SCS Sabres were filled with feelings of felicity after the football team beat Christ Church. So this is a sentence from last year. Obviously, felicity is something positive. It is a noun, and it's when you have happiness or bliss. You're just so excited, you're thrilled, you are experiencing euphoria or delight. The opposite is unhappiness or discontent. Here's another picture of our football team. This was from the state championship game when we won the 1A football championship last year in Columbia against Allendale Fairfax, 42-8. Extreme feelings of felicity for the players and for the students and parents of Southside. And our last word for this week is daunt. If you have prepared well for the game, even the fierce competition will not daunt you. Fierce and competition are your clues as to what daunt means. So if you've prepared well, you're not going to be daunted, or you're not going to be afraid to face the other team. So it's a verb, it's an action, and it means to make afraid, to discourage. Synonyms would be intimidate or dishearten. Some of you might be daunted by the thought of having to take 4 to 5 exams in a week or so, especially that now that they are worth 20% of your grade rather than 10 as they were in middle school. The opposite is encourage. So here's a picture of daunt, or to symbolize daunt. If you've read the Divergent series or seen the movies, one of the factions is the Dauntless faction, and it says underneath Dauntless, the brave, because these people are not daunted. They're not afraid by facing obstacles. They jump off of fast-moving trains and face all kinds of challenges without being worried or discouraged that they're going to be defeated. So this is the last word for this lesson. Make sure to put your pledge on exercise 1 that you watched and listened to the video.